Hey everybody, welcome back to Laptop Seniors. Today we're going to be back in Argentina. Not us literally, but we'll be back talking about Argentina. And we're going to be talking to our friends who live down there most of the year. They don't live there permanently, like year round. They go back and forth. So they're sort of like snowbirds down there, except they're down there more there than they are elsewhere. And also they have been doing that for 20 years. And they're Argentinian. So this is real people, real life in Argentina, and they know what's going on. Their families are there, history is there, growing up there, all of that stuff. And they're pretty wired into the community and the city itself. So, and they're professionals. That's another thing too. Business people, people who've run their own businesses. So they're sharp, I guess what I'm trying to say.
And they stay in touch with what's going on in the world, what's going on in the news, and specifically Argentina. So they really know the ins and outs of it.
Yeah, and a lot of this is going to be about healthcare. That comes up so much for country after country. What's the healthcare like?
You asked, and we're answering.
Yeah, so you can take it from there and kind of explain what they're going to be hearing.
There are several different types of healthcare in Argentina, and obviously there's different types of health insurance. So we're going to talk about some of those options and some of the things available. International healthcare is one option, and perhaps a good one for you if you plan to do international travel. The thing to remember is those international plans tend to be very expensive if Canada or the US are included in that travel.
Yeah, like double, sometimes triple.
And you really will have a lot of fine print to read on those, and you want to read it and make sure you're getting what you think you're getting. Expats can easily access both the public and private types of healthcare in hospitals. And it's very available in the big cities like Buenos Aires, Cordoba, Mendoza. But apparently in rural areas, it's not very accessible and can be quite daunting. The public hospitals are teaching hospitals with doctors that are trained abroad in many cases, and many of them speak English.
So one of the questions you're going to be asking is, well, how are the hospitals? They sort of run the gamut. So you have the staff and the doctors, and they're all good in all of them. Some of the hospitals are older and they don't have, quite the facilities as some of the other ones, which are amazing. A lot of it because they're newer, they charge more, because there's different types of healthcare, which pricing, which we're going to get into. There's basically free to expensive, depending on where you are on that scale. And we're going to go through that as we're talking to our friends who live down there. There's a man and a woman, husband and wife.
We'll call them D&G.
Yeah,
not Dolce and Gabbana, but D&G.
Let's call her Dolce. Yeah, let's call them Dolce and Gabbana. Anyway, so one of them is going to be talking, mainly about the healthcare, and then the other was going to go into money and some other things and what's been going on down there. And a lot of this basically is just a plain conversation among friends, which is going to be interesting because it's not an interview, but you get to hear a lot of unique facts pour out as we're going along.
And real stories of people and their situations, which is interesting.
Yeah, and part of it too is if you happen to be down there and you're wondering, oh my God, something happened, I need to go to the hospital, you'll literally hear hospital names and why you should go to these ones versus some other ones. So it's really good information that you would only know if you're on the ground there and you're living there, which is exactly what this is going to be about.
Well, before we do that, let me just tell you a little bit about private hospitals.
Right.
Private hospitals are like high-end hotels in Buenos Aires anyway.
Uruguay too, actually, yeah.
Private hospitals typically have an annual plan, which you would pay for monthly. And I believe they start at around $40 a month and go up depending on the level of care you're looking for and the hospital that you're at.
Sort of like joining a club. You catch that in a lot of South American countries and Central America too, where you join the hospital and therefore you get, your health care is taken care of when you have to go to that hospital. Not necessarily others, but that particular one.
Right. It's basically just at this hospital. So this is not healthcare that's going to take care of you as you travel around even Argentina.
Yeah, it's not like an HMO like in the States, where you get like 15 hospitals or 100 hospitals are in the group. This is like a one What's a one hospital HMO? Sometimes maybe two.
So the doctors at these private hospitals are very well trained and most likely to speak English, especially if you're not well or in an emergency situation, a little panicky maybe. It's going to be hard to translate what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Especially if you had to say, like, I have a pain just to the right of my liver, about 4 inches, and it's kind of reverberating down the side of this muscle right here. Yeah, good luck with that if your
Oh.
Spanish isn't great. You go like, I don't know any of those words. What do I do now?
There's a much lower wait time in the private hospitals and very likely to be able to see a specialist in whatever field you need very quickly and at a low cost. In fact, it was a private hospital, I believe, where Dee went and had a blood condition diagnosed, which he had been for months going to doctors in Canada when he was there, and they couldn't figure out the problem.
Yeah, that went on for a long time. And
Uh-huh.
yet the doctors down there figured it out, as
Yeah.
opposed to, ones in Canada, which you would assume would have figured it out, but they didn't.
They all specialize in slightly different things.
Since we're on the subject of specialists, let's start into, the conversation that Viv had with her friend. And the first question sort of is going to come up is, well, specialist, well, what's that cost? If you didn't have insurance and stuff, what would that be?
$20 to $45 for a visit here.
Prices are for a specialist doctor?
Yes, nobody here is
Wow.
gouging anybody because that's why they're doctors, and that's why if they want to go and gouge, they go move to the States or move to another country. But if they're here, they really are. I mean, they're
Right.
overrun and overworked. But now a lot of them that they have like these insurances, right? Like if you're with Swiss Medica or with Medic, like we used to be with Swiss Medical, then we used to be because we used to buy the insurances. But for what we paid, and it got really expensive, we said, what's the point? Might as well pay as we go, because it was becoming a little bit too crazy, and we had to pay all year without being here. So that's why we said, no way, we're just... And like yesterday, Canadian from Kingston, Ontario, she had an issue that she had to go into the hospital. She went to the hospital Aleman, which is a superb hospital. There's Italiana, there's Aleman. The public ones are the Fernandez, which our friend Titi, she was in a coma. She spent 6 weeks at Fernandez Hospital. Her sister, of course, they have a big insurance because here the hotelier, when you have like a private room, it's like being at the Four Seasons, and that's where the cost is. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
No,
Right.
But and then they transfer you, whatever they have to do. Then they transferred her to the Arcos, again, a clinic like Trinidad. All these clinics that are very high end. She thought she was in Nassau in space when the equipment that she saw in that operating room. She said, unbelievable, because that's where they learn the doctors.
What hospital was that? The
Fernandez.
Fernandez.
Carol, she ended up going to the hospital Aliman, and I said, so what did they charge you? She said, nothing. They checked me out. The doctors came. She said, and because I was foreign, they didn't charge me anything. The only thing I had a problem was with the prescription, because when I went to the pharmacist, something happened there. But she said, no, I was fine. It wasn't something that was really... But she said, they didn't charge me anything. And that's what this president's saying. Enough of everybody coming and just taking advantage and not putting a penny into it, because that's what's happening with all the people around, all the countries around us.
But
they're all coming in and having their children, whatever, at the public hospitals. Fernandez is famous for tourists, for people, anything that happens, they get in there. Now, I've seen people going in there that are the homeless off the streets, that we've gone in there and made sure that they've been taken care of, because when we were doing all that with the doggies and the homeless with the doggies, I mean, I don't want to tell you the story. I went in there and we went to see one of the chaps that was living on the street with dogs. The room wasn't, high end, but it was clean, had the right blankets. He was given 3 meals. He was given the right medicine, taken care of like first class. But of course, the place is run down because there's not a lot of money for that kind of stuff. Whereas that's why the people have the other tier that have money. They can go into the more expensive situations that are really they're much smaller and much better taken care of, obviously, right? Because public hospitals, you know what it's like. It's emergencies left and right, but the top doctors are being trained and they work there. If anything happens, just go to Fernandez in the emergency, because there you'll be treated right away. But like everybody says now, the lineups are from Bolivia, from Paraguay, from all the other countries surrounding, and they can't refuse the attention. So that's taking a toll on the regular people here. Same thing all over the world, you know what I mean? At least the emergency is not going to cost you 50,000 a day or whatever it is.
Do they even ask you if you can afford to pay when you go in?
No.
There's a third type of health care that's not for expats, but just for your information. It is called Obras Sociales. It's mainly for Argentinian workers, and it's basically their healthcare plan through working, which is partly paid for, and depending on the service, they may have to pay part of that. So just for your own knowledge, that wouldn't apply to you.
Yeah, well, it might, depending on the visa that you have that goes down there, you may actually...
Or if you're working.
Yeah, you might actually, have a different visa and you are a worker. You're going to hear on this conversation, there is a huge amount of Russian and Ukrainian young families and young couples moving to Argentina. Like there's been a monster influx. Russians who do not, younger guys and stuff that they don't want to fight in the war.
Buenos Aires mainly.
Yeah, and a huge amount of them are coming in where the wife or girlfriend is pregnant. And so they want to have a baby, which gets into immigration. They want to have a baby in Argentina because the baby instantly becomes an Argentinian. And once the baby is an Argentinian, that makes a super fast track for the parents to also become Argentinian and be, and get visas and things like that. So it's a fast way in. So I don't know, I think they're like 40 to 60,000 have come in over the last year, people, doing exactly that.
So if they're coming from Ukraine, for example, or a country where they want to give up their citizenship, they can then do that and then actually travel more freely around the world if that's their choice.
Yeah, one of the things that people don't know, different passports, if you have a U.S. or Canadian passport, which are primo passports, you'd assume that they're, all passports are like that, but they're not. Different countries have different sort of degrees of passport of quality. In other words, say a U.S. passport, I don't know what it is, but I'll make this up. Say there's 180 countries in the world, and a U.S. passport, maybe you'll need a visa for 3 of them. But if you have a Turkish passport, you might need visas for like 40 of them. And if you have an Iranian passport, and there's 180 countries in the world, you probably need visas for like 140 of them. So there's different levels of quality of passport. An Argentinian passport is like, I don't know, in the top 10. It's an exceptionally awesome passport because nobody has a problem with Argentina. Same thing like with a Singapore passport. I think a Singapore passport is like 100% of all countries. Like nobody doesn't like people from Singapore. So they have no problem when they don't bother anybody. So therefore, there's no issues and they're open for everywhere. So, something to consider. It's a spectacular passport to actually have. And it's one of the fastest tracks, baby or no baby, to actually get a citizenship there. It's only a 2-year thing where almost all countries are way longer than that to get their passport by living in the country, naturalization, all that sort of stuff.
So what Gia was saying was that her friend who had a stroke was taken by ambulance to a public hospital, and she was there for weeks receiving excellent care because they didn't realize at the time that she had private hospital coverage.
Wow.
So they did move her to Hospital Aleman, as G said, and had excellent care there as well. And she had 0 bill at the end of it, even though she wasn't counting her monthly payments to her annual plan.
Yeah.
So she was paying for the hospital, but no additional charges at all. There is a free medical emergency line, dial 107 from any phone in Argentina. The thing is, you will probably need a translator, so it might go back to that situation of, you're in an emergency and you can't speak Spanish. There is a tourist emergency line. Now, this is a longer number. You may want to write it down. 0800 999 5000. 0800 999 5000.
I'll put it on the screen.
But in an emergency situation, you're best to just head over to the nearest hospital. And I say hospital, not clinic, because they're going to have all the diagnostic equipment you need. A few things of interest to us about healthcare and hospitals in Argentina is that you're going in for surgery. You may actually be required to donate a certain number of units of blood before you have that procedure. So they might deem you to possibly need 3 units of blood during the procedure, and they will ask you to donate, either you or friends on your behalf, to donate that blood in advance of your surgery.
Yeah, we did that when we were there. A friend of ours, a friend of a friend, needed heart surgery, and
I'd say he's a friend.
well, no, the one who needed surgery. We never met that person.
Right,
But
right.
our friend asked if we would give blood on their behalf because neither one of them could give blood because they were both gay. And it was like, yeah, sure, no problem, whatever. So we,
Yeah,
you know,
their blood donations were not accepted.
yeah, so we went and gave, a pint each from us. And I think he needed 4, or they wouldn't do the operation.
Yeah,
So that's kind of the way blood works there, which is some countries do that. That's an odd thing for North America, certainly, because everybody usually gives blood ahead of time and it's banked, but not there.
Also, if you are required to take regular medications, you want to make sure that those medications are available in Argentina in particular, or anywhere that you're going. And in Argentina, just like many countries, the prescriptions or the drugs that require prescription are different. So you may be needing a prescription for something that you're getting here, which there could very well be over the counter. Good to know.
Yeah, that
And
happens.
there could be way different pricing.
Yeah, that happens in Panama and Mexico. I think, we've never really tried it everywhere we've been, but my guess is that's probably almost every country in the world because clearly when you travel a lot and you look for medications in different places or you go roaming through drugstores, drugs in the US and Canada are, compared to the rest of the world, insanely priced. Like the US foots the bill for the rest of the world as far as drugs.
And insanely regulated.
Yeah, it would be, something, hey, this pill is $80 each, let's just say. Well, everybody else in the world, it's like maybe $3.
Dental care is also way less expensive than in the US or Canada. Might be higher now. I haven't been on top of that with Mealy and the difference in the dollar and the pricing, but much cheaper than here.
And speaking of Mile, let's move on now, because we also asked G, there's been a lot of changes since he took office and cut back on some things, added a bunch of other things, and so on and so forth. And, and we'll get into inflation and other things and how that's going. But right at this moment, okay, because we were talking to her last week for this conversation. So the question is, well, prices, how are things? Are they cheap? Are they not cheap? Are they, all of a sudden way out of hand? Now she's going to be talking about someone who's, from the mindset of you are there with non-pesos. You're going to switch into pesos because that's what you're going to spend, but you're coming with American dollars or Canadian dollars or euros. You're coming with a currency from out of the country, okay, and switching it into pesos and getting a lot of pesos for them. So that's how she's answering in that mindset. So when you say, well, are things cheap or not? How are they? She is going to say,
dinner and all that is cheap. Renting is very cheap. Now, when you go to the supermarkets, of course, everything has gone up in prices. It's like a game. Every day you go and you say, oh, now you can buy 2 for 1, blah, blah, blah. So it's a game with all the people that own all these marketplaces.
let's get specifically into money down there, or any country really. When you go to a country and you're bringing US dollars or Canadian dollars or euros or whatever, you're going to have to switch money into their currency. It's the currency exchange. And you're going to go to an ATM usually and pull it out. Ideally a bank ATM. You're not going to do it at the airport. Those are the worst rates. But Argentina for many, many years, well over a decade, 10, 15 years, has been really messed up in that you can only get so many dollars out. And the rates have been all over the place because they have like different types of dollars, but they're actually pesos. You're getting pesos, but they have different types of currencies. And the new guy, Mele, he's trying to just get rid of all of those and just move down to just one plain currency like every other country in the world. So we asked Dee,
Dolce.
yeah, Dolce. We asked him like, okay, please explain the currency.
There are so many different dollars here. The dollar for the people of the country who have the cows and the wheat and so forth. So there's an export dollar. There is a business export and import dollar. There is the official dollar that is the exchange you will get in a bank or an exchange house. And there is the famous blue dollar that's been around for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years. That is the illegal dollar. Illegal. It's a parallel dollar. Because the country up to now, you couldn't buy, an Argentinian person cannot buy dollars, can buy only up to $200 a month. Everybody who has an extra penny wants to buy dollars because inflation obviously is fatal and the dollar used to go up. With this new president, it hasn't moved at all. Because what he's trying to do is that the people forget about the blue dollar and eventually the only dollar will be the official dollar. So now he's giving you free range to bring all the money that you have under the mattress, that Argentinians have dollars in Miami, in Uruguay, everywhere, and it's not going to charge you 1 cent. He wants the dollars to come back to the country. That's why he's no printing money. There is no money around, no printing. Apart from cutting extremely everything, he's cutting money. It's an amazing guy, anyway. And eventually he wants Argentina that the peso and the dollar will be the same. So there is no more blue dollar or yellow dollar or whatever. So that's what's happening. And the blue dollar that for us was very convenient because it was always much more money than the bank will exchange to me. Was always like 30% more. Now it's kind of stuck. There is no, like, to give you an idea, if you're going to buy dollars in the bank you will pay legally about 900 pesos, 910 pesos per dollar, or 900, let's say. And if you buy it blue, you will be paying much more. You will pay like 1,000. But you can buy as many as you want. You understand? So, for example, myself, every 4 weeks, I call a guy, and this guy makes a commission and deals with big guys. That big guys are very wealthy guys that they sit at home and they just negotiate dollars. And they for example, if I sell in my dollars, they give me 1,000, and if I'm gonna buy dollars, it's 1,040. So they're making 4%, but in the quantity, it's a lot. When I sell for much less than when I buy. I have to pay more, but I always tell it. Many people, friends of yours, they will say, "Will you exchange with me?" And so we break the difference in between, half and half. So the difference is not so big.
How do credit cards work there? Should we use them or not use them?
You cannot use credit cards here because by the time that a Canadian credit card gets charged, your Canadian dollar is worth the shit here. If American dollar is 1,000 pesos, I say the Canadian is only 700. It doesn't exist. So if you buy anything you pay with your credit card, you are paying so much more. It's costing you so much more than what will be costing you with the cash. Argentina is a cash country up to now, okay?
Right.
Like last night we pay, and with cash you get 10% in most of the restaurants, or 15%. And if I buy coffee maybe somewhere, the guy will give me 20% off with cash, okay? They'd rather have the cash today than paying they're getting the money from the credit card. There was a point that I used to change money like twice a day, 3 times a day. Then it wasn't so necessary, every 2 weeks, every month. Now it's so stable that it doesn't matter if I change today or next month, it's almost the same. And what Milei, the president, is trying to do is that the actual official dollar will go up to marry that blue dollar, that illegal dollar, so it wouldn't exist anymore. And everybody's going to start pulling the dollar. It's more, they're trying to legalize the purchases, everything in dollars, okay?
Yeah.
It's going to be good for everybody. I'm not talking as a Canadian, I'm talking as an Argentinian people who live here, because There is a lot of money, I tell you, lots of money in Uruguay, lots of money in Miami, and this government wants to bring all that money in. It's furthermore, this week they approved finally credit loans for to buy properties. It's going to be affected by the inflation of every month, but since being in the government, it's been lowering the inflation was like 20 something a month. It was just crazy. What Canada probably has the whole year here was per month. Since he took over, it's been reducing, and now we are in about 10, 11. And he's promising that in a month or 2 months it's going to be just one digit, you know? So he's doing very well.
A lot of changes since January when Milei took over in Argentina as new president and changing things. And as I'm sure you're aware, the inflation rate was insane. It was running, 240, 280. Pushing up to 300%. It was on the same slope as like the Weimar Republic of Germany after World War One, and you know what that caused, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The country's just disintegrate and who knows where it's going to go. So his, job one is to fix that. So our question to our friend there is like, well, is it getting better? Like, tell us about inflation.
Some people hate him because they are losing money like that, and they're trying to cut with the corruption.
How do you feel about what he's doing?
Oh, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
The only ones happy are not the Peronistas. Not these people that have been living from the government, like Canada. You don't work, they give you money, so they don't want to work. Because when you start collecting so much because you don't work, and so much for each citizen, you make much more money than going to work. The problem is that for every penny that they threw to these imbeciles, they keep 20 in their pocket. That's why they're all rich.
Uh-huh.
The governor, the diputados, the senators, it's so corrupted, 30 years of corruption, that, I give you 5, but I keep 40, you know what I mean? And also, hundreds of thousands of employees that never went to work, working for the government, never went to work. And they pay to the guy who hires them a little commission. They get a check and they split it half and half.
Oh.
And they don't have to go to work. That's what has been happening here for the last 25 years. Everybody who has one finger of brain is holding because it's a tough time. Things are very expensive. The government took all the subsidized bills of hydro, water, gas, gasoline. It went like 30, 40%, twice, 3 times more expensive. He took all the subsidy because if not, he has to keep borrowing money from outside and the country will never get out.
I don't know if they have it in the news there a lot, but we were wondering, like, other leaders around the world and just the world in general looking at Argentina, because it seems like, it's the hot topic for governments everywhere to look. How are they taking what the new guy is doing? Any sense of world leaders, like how they're thinking about Argentina now?
Everybody loves him. The Prime Minister of Italy is in love with him. Trump is buddy with him. Israel is super friendly with him. He just bought planes from Denmark. It's changing the Argentina in front of the world.
It sounds like he's got a lot of support.
Kind of, and also for the youth. The youth is so tired of they've been going nowhere, That's right. And also his staff. He wants to start creating a university that if you can afford, you have to pay. He's doing things that, some people don't like it, although they vote him, but they know that this is the benefit, because if not, this country was going to go to the ruin, like all Central America and South America. One is more corrupted than the other. And the drugs, Ministry of Defense, the security, whatever, they are fighting like crazy to all the drug lords that come from Mexico and from Peru. Drugs are coming from Mexico, Colombia, via Salta, via Bolivia, and Peru. Peru are the biggest shit ever here. They are coming here through the special port in a city called Rosario, where the ships are loaded and go to Europe. The drug goes through there.
Oh.
So this government, before they were getting money from these guys, and they let them in because they were making big money with these guys. This government is really fighting. No, it's a whole different change. Since December, everything is changing.
One last thing, which just sort of came up after we ended up recording. So we did that a few days ago with our friends. There's demonstrations now that you will see on the news in Buenos Aires. Now, when we were there, demonstrations were a fairly common occurrence. Like, I don't know, it seemed like there was at least one a month.
Well, they definitely were, but the thing about the demonstrations that we saw was that they didn't really disrupt life around them at all.
No.
It might have been like one contained intersection or just a corner or a piece of property. It really didn't disrupt anything in the city around them. It was very localized.
Yeah, no, the ones going on now are a couple burning cars, somebody throwing a Molotov cocktail.
Which is
The
definitely
police-
more than what we saw.
Yeah, police shooting rubber bullets. But here's the one thing I just kind of want to say. Until we hear different from our friends, who are there, we'll know for sure. But of what I've seen on TV there, they are way smaller than a normal demonstration. Now, the nuance of them, this one would be, I don't want to use the word, it didn't look violent, but it just looked like they were a little bit more passionate. So, and some of those people would have lost their government jobs because there was a lot of job cutbacks in the government. And also, people, have lost.
And pensions being
Pens-
cut, that would be disturbing for sure.
For sure it would be. And pensions were cut, although taxes were being cut. And that's what sort of prompted this. The government, not the president, but the government themselves, their Congress and Senate, that type of thing, voted new laws to cut taxes, try to get the economy going and cut expenses, but they also cut pensions too. The other thing that could be part of this, and I don't mean this to be political, but it's just the way life is, that many of those demonstrators could be professional demonstrators because they're set up by other people in government, politics, who don't like the new guy.
We're hoping that this is the same situation now, that the media is playing up the demonstrations, and that we're hoping they're not as serious as what they might appear to be on the news.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep following the news, and we'll try to keep you informed the best we can.
Because they make it worse. I mean,
It could be.
Anything could happen, yeah. Right now it sort of seems to me like, the demonstrations that go on, like at the campuses that have been going on, because of Israel and Gaza, and you go like, whoa, look at that, and, and some of those are violent, they're throwing things and all that sort of stuff, except that if you're not by the university, it's like, does it bother you? Not at all. And, and it's just like almost everything else that goes on.
Not to downplay the situation, but
Yeah, no, what I'm trying to say is if you're down there, Buenos Aires is a gigantic city. And it's just like any country that you go to where you're coming from outside with different money. And I've said this in so many different videos, so much of what goes on there will not affect you because you're going to be not where that's happening, or the money thing is of no concern because you have different kind of money. If you're a local, then it's a problem. I can't stress that enough because it's any country. It's not just Argentina. You go with an American dollar or a Canadian dollar, and you go to a country where they have a distressed currency. You're top of the food chain. It's just that simple. Yeah. So anyway, hope you like that. Hope you got something out of it. If you're thinking about Argentina, it's a hot country right now. And a lot of people are looking at it. It's on their radar. Anything else there, Buckaroo?
yeah, I just want to say that a lot of people are thinking with the rising prices and the changes in the currency that it's become expensive there. And that's really not the case. It's very relative.
Yeah.
So it was very, very, very inexpensive there before. And now the prices are higher. But compared to North America here, Canada, US, prices are still very low there.
Yeah, we went back to Canada and we was like shocked at the pricing. So I'll give you, for instance, this was a head of celery, $7.49. Welcome to Toronto. Hello. It's like, gotta go. Bye-bye. Yeah. Anyway.
Welcome to Loblaws.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of goodbye, you want to close it out there, Buckaroo?
Yeah. Thanks so much for staying with us to the end, if you did. Please come back and see us again soon. Bye for now.